Good morning. This is Linda Smith, and I'm the branch chief of the Health and Exposure Group at the California Air Resources Board. And we are here today to talk about our air cleaner regulation that's been on the books now for over 10 years, and we are considering amendments to it to bring it up to date. And I'm going to, at this point, turn over the workshop to Pat Wong, who is the manager of the Indoor Air Quality and Exposure Group. So, Pat, could you take it from here?
Okay, thank you, Linda. And just a few introductions. Linda Smith to my left is the branch chief of the Health and Exposure Assessment Section. My name is Pat Wong. I'm the manager of the Indoor Exposure Assessment Section. To my right is Dr. Julia Gress. She is the lead staff on the air cleaner regulation and will be delivering today's workshop presentation. And over by the computer there is Dr. Jeffrey Williams. He will be collecting questions from the internet, and he's also our expertise on the standards for the regulation. I guess just a couple of quick housekeeping announcements for those people in the room. We have a few housekeeping details to go over. The drinking fountain and restrooms are located out the doors and at the back of the room. Go to the left, then left past the glass sculpture hanging from the ceiling. The drinking fountain and restrooms are located there on the right. In the event of a fire alarm, we are required to evacuate this room. Please take your valuables with you and do not use the elevators. Evacuees will exit down the stairways and possibly to a relocation site across the street. Should we have to relocate out of the building, please obey all traffic signals and exercise caution crossing the street. And I guess we're going to start by having Dr. Julia Gress give the workshop presentation.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this workshop. This presentation is designed to open the door to further discussions about amending CARB's air cleaner regulation, which has been in effect for over a decade now. We are in the formative stage of considering possible amendments and look forward to hearing from you about potential amendments for CARB to consider. This is a brief presentation and will cover 4 general areas. I'll spend a little time on the formation and implementation of the air cleaner regulation, and then highlight areas where we believe updates would be beneficial. I will also present the expected timeline for amending the regulation. Afterwards, we will have plenty of time for discussion and to answer your comments or questions. For participants joining via webcast, please note that you can email questions at any point during this workshop. The email address is SierraRM, which is spelled SIERRARM, at calepa.ca.gov. First, a short background on the air cleaner regulation. CARB staff and other researchers studied ozone emissions from portable air cleaners and identified a public health risk. The results of these studies, along with a growing body of public health research on the adverse health effects from ozone inhalation, spurred the legislature to pass AB 2267 in 2006. This bill directed CARB to adopt a regulation to limit ozone from air cleaning devices to protect public health. This was accomplished, and the regulation went into effect in 2008. So to make sure that we're all on the same page starting out, let's review CARB's definition of an indoor air cleaning device subject to the regulation. Our regulation covers energy-using devices, and that's an important term, energy-using, that reduce airborne pollutants in an enclosed space. And this slide shows images of the general types of devices that are included in that definition. They include devices designed to clean the air in a room, in a whole house, in vehicles, and in the air surrounding a person. The definition is intentionally broad to cover a full range of devices. The regulation requires that all portable air cleaning devices sold in California be certified by CARB, including those sold online. Electronic air cleaners must be tested by a CARB-approved certified laboratory for the concentration of ozone emissions, which must not exceed 0.05 parts per million. which is equivalent to 50 ppb. All devices must be tested for electrical safety. Mechanical air cleaners that employ only physical filtration to clean the air require only an electrical safety certification and do not need to undergo ozone testing. Besides testing, there are other administrative requirements that must be met. These include specific labeling that must be included on packaging, as well as notification and record-keeping requirements to make sure everyone in the retail chain is aware of the regulation and that there's a way to track sales of certified devices in case an enforcement action is undertaken. There's also a stipulation that advertising for non-certified devices must make clear that those devices cannot be shipped to California, which is particularly important for online sellers. When the regulation was drafted in 2007, there was no test method for measuring ozone emissions from electronic induct devices like the one shown on the slide. We also lacked market data on their use in California. So for these reasons, induct devices were exempt from the regulation, even though we did have anecdotal evidence on their sale and use. And because ozone does have practical uses in some commercial and industrial applications, we also provided exemptions for some industrial use devices. The industrial use exemptions cover areas where ozone generators have been used primarily to kill microbes and to sterilize work areas and materials. Ozone-producing devices have also been used extensively by remediation companies and in the hotel and motor vehicle reconditioning and detailing industries to eliminate odors. In several areas of the regulation, we intentionally added protective language that prohibits the use of ozone generators when people are present. But that language was not extended to cover all industrial uses, potentially leading to human exposures. Implementation of the regulation has resulted in Californians being able to trust that the certified air cleaning device that they purchase will not compromise their health from exposure to ozone from the device. And since the implementation of the program, over 2,200 models from over 300 manufacturers have been certified. And we've provided an online list of certified devices, which is widely used by consumers from across the United States. As well, we know that harmful ozone generators have largely been removed from the California marketplace. And as a result of this regulatory focus, there is heightened public awareness about health risks from exposure to ozone from indoor air cleaners. But the landscape of the air cleaner market has changed over time. With expanded use in operations such as cannabis growing facilities and in other applications. Retail distribution has also shifted with increased online sales and more devices such as induct air cleaning models not sold directly to consumers but to HVAC contractors who provide the installation. And we all know that public interest in air quality is growing and has led to an increasing number of dual-purpose devices, such as the desk lamp purifier in the middle image. In addition, climate change-driven wildfires in California have resulted in a huge demand for air cleaning and remediation services, which commonly use ozone and hydroxyl ion generating devices. To better understand the changing induct market over time, we requested a report that specifically covered California sales. And this slide shows that the market is dominated by sales of portable air cleaners, which is really no surprise, with almost 2/3 of market volume. However, induct devices tend to be more expensive than portables, leading to a reversal when looking at the dollar market share, with induct sales dominating the dollar market. This slide illustrates the increase in the California market volume from 2017 to 2023, which is estimated to increase by over 30%, in part because of the market drivers that I highlighted in the previous slide. Our goals for amending the regulation are straightforward. As mentioned before, when the regulation was written in 2007, there wasn't a method for testing ozone emissions from induct models. And we did lack the data on the California market. But those conditions have now changed. We're also looking at all the industrial use exemptions and considering their utility at this time. We intend to include amendments to streamline the implementation of the regulation, make it easier for manufacturers to achieve certification and stay in compliance. And because it's been over a decade since the regulation was implemented, we also need to update definitions and test methods, including the UL standards, and add new standards for dual-function devices that have become so popular. But let's spend a little more time looking at the induct devices. We are concerned about the expanding induct market and the potential for exposure to ozone from these devices. To achieve our public health goal of minimizing human exposure to ozone where needed, we do plan to expand certification requirements to include electronic induct devices. There is a test method in use, and testing laboratories have expressed interest in expanding their capability in this arena. At the time the regulation was written, CARB received requests to include exemptions for a myriad of industrial applications, including some where ozone is used in water or for industrial processes other than air cleaning. We propose to remove those exemptions because they are outside CARB's regulatory authority. In some exempted uses, we did add the protective language that specified that ozone could only be used when people are not physically present. But we continue to be concerned that workers and bystanders may be exposed to ozone used in some commercial and industrial applications, and we are proposing to add that protective language to all industrial use exemptions. We're also open to adding additional exempted uses, and we would like to hear from stakeholders about those. We also intend to streamline the regulation. Research shows that UV bulbs emitting light at 254 nanometer wavelength do not create ozone, and UL has historically included mechanical devices with UV bulbs in their definition of mechanical air cleaners under their UL 507 test standard. We are considering dropping the ozone testing requirement for mechanical devices that use only UV lamps at 254 nanometer. We're also considering ways to simplify the application process for mechanical air cleaning devices, as well as requiring manufacturers to maintain distributor, retailer, and seller notification documents instead of submitting those to CARB. In addition, we hope to clarify in the regulation what specific documents are needed to constitute a complete application and outline the condition under which already certified devices would need to undergo recertification prior to sale in California. We also need to update references and requirements. As mentioned before, the UL 507 and 867 test methods, as listed in the regulation, have been revised and must be updated to reflect the current standards. And there is an increasing number of dual-purpose devices, like the desk lamp air purifier and the humidifier ionizer shown in the slide, and appropriate electrical safety standards for these types of devices are needed. We also plan to clarify the labeling requirement to simplify compliance for manufacturers. Above all, our actions are motivated by a need to address the proliferation of ozone-producing devices that could lead to unhealthy exposures to ozone by the general public. At the same time, we do want to make it easier for manufacturers to comply with the regulation, achieve certification, and sell their devices in California. As I said in the beginning, this is our first step in the regulatory process. We want to hear from you, your thoughts on ways you believe the regulation should be amended. So please submit your written comments by March 30th and plan to attend our second workshop on June 3rd. This is the end of our presentation, and we will now open the meeting to discussion. We've provided a few questions for consideration. Again, webinar participants can submit your comments or questions online, which we will read out and respond to. We've also posted this PowerPoint on the Air Cleaner Amendments webpage. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. I guess we will start by seeing if we have any questions or comments from our online audience.
Okay, Pat, so I'm sorry, we have a first question, which I think Julia just answered from Craig Allred. He just said, thank you for putting together this workshop. Will the slides be presented during the workshop? Will they be made available to the public? So Kai, you might just reiterate where they would be available.
They're available on CARB websites in a couple of arenas. The easiest way to find them is just to Google Amendments Air Cleaner Regulation CARB, and it will pop up right there. And that's where we're going to be providing updates. You can find the agenda for today, contact information, and please email me if you have any comments to share or if you want to schedule a meeting with the management team. Thank you.
Okay, and this next question is from Mark Tillis. Mark says, Julie has spoken often about induct devices. Would you please clarify that induct devices for extraction-only applications, so he gives the example of commercial kitchen exhaust cleaning with ozone, are and will continue to be exempt?
Hi, Mark. This is an area that we need to explore, and we do look forward to discussing this with you further. We're aware of your, commercial use of ozone, and we would like to talk with you more directly about that. Thank you.
Okay, this next question comes from Hejung Jung, and the question is, why is the standard not an emission rate in terms of grams per second? The concentration or mixing ratio can vary as a function of volume. And since that's a testing question, if you'd like, Kai, I can take that. Let's see. Yeah, so Hejung, we, in the development of the test method with UL, made a determination to use concentration as parts per million. And the concentration is read at a specific distance from the face of the device. And so it's currently not measured as a rate, and we don't anticipate changing that. And that measurement is consistent for all of the labs. It's done in the same way. Okay, this next question is from Charles Waddell. If the duct-mounted products are tested to UL 867, 2007 ozone chamber test, does that mean that the CARB requirements, does that meet the CARB requirements? And I would like to note the testing should include the ozone chamber test and the voltage the product is operating, so there are no games played with submitted products versus production models. So again, it looks like that's a testing question. And the current testing, the induct devices, if they're tested to the current ozone testing that we use in 867, which is section 40, no, that's not the test that would work. They have to be mounted in a duct, a mock duct system in order for that to work. We'll be working with the laboratories that currently do the testing to finalize what that test method looks like, and that's not complete though at this time. Okay, the next question comes from Laura Petrillo-Grow. A few questions. Would you please review the changes to the test procedures which make them applicable to induct products? Are third-party test labs currently capable of testing to the test procedures referenced? Has CARB conducted any testing of induct products? And is the current 50 ppb ceiling appropriate for induct products? Okay. Looks like that's, do you have any comments over there, or would you like me to take that? Okay. The first question, the changes, as I said just a little bit earlier, have not been finalized, so I really don't want to go into any details about what that final test method is going to look like. The Canadian Standards Association does have a test method that they use for induct devices, and I suspect that it's going to look very much like that. Are third-party test labs currently capable of testing? The answer to that is yes. There are, and again, we will be working with all of the test labs to develop capability other than just say one lab, hopefully all three will be providing that testing capability. CARB has not done any testing of the induct products ourselves. We only have that done through third-party testing. And is the current 50 ppb ceiling appropriate for induct products? Yes, we believe that it is. And Pat or Kai, do you have any comment on that? The 50 ppb, is that, we agree? Okay.
This is Linda Smith. I'll comment on the 50 ppb. And the reason that we're looking at concentration versus a rate is that it's for health protection. And it was patterned after medical devices, which are required to be 50 ppb or less in order to be health protective. Anything above that, we'd be concerned that you might get adverse health effects from breathing in that ozone. So that's the basis of our regulation.
Okay, this next question comes from Andy Ide at Eris. How will the regulation address window-mounted air cleaner that draws from the outside?
Hi, Andy. This is Julia Gress. That is an area that we are going to be looking at, and that does currently we're looking to amend the definition of an indoor air cleaning device to include those types of units.
Okay, this next question is from Thomas Wilson. Thomas says, good afternoon. Some manufacturers of PIN ionizers state that the products do not emit ozone. They state that they create singlet oxygen, which as it degrades changes to ozone. Does ozone as a byproduct of an induct system operation fall under this amendment, or will it continue to be exempt?
Thank you for that question. Those are not exempt right now, and they will be continue to be needed to be certified under the regulation.
And Charles just asked a follow-up question about the ozone induct testing and what the ETA is for that to be complete. We'll have some time to work on that. You know, this regulation, we're in the early processes of developing these amendments to the regulation. So there is no specific ETA. I would like to, we would obviously see this revised testing or this new testing in, well in advance of the release of the regulation. That's maybe the best way to say it.
And I'd like to add, we'll have a lot more information on this at our June 3rd workshop coming up.
Thanks. Hotels are, okay, this is from Mark Tillis again. Hotels are mentioned as having an existing exemption for ozone cleaners. Does this exemption include their use in restaurant waste rooms or only when sanitizing guest rooms after parties or disallowed smoke exposure?
Hello, Mark. It's Julia Gress again. Well, currently, we're just becoming aware of the use of the ozone generators in the waste rooms in the restaurant business or even in the hotel industry. So at this time, we've been primarily concerned with their use in guest rooms or in the ductwork of the hotel.
Okay, this next question comes from Sanjeev Hingorani. He says, thank you for a great presentation. I think you should have all lamps with or above 254 nanometer wavelength exempt from ozone testing. Does a UVA lamp with PCO technology get an exemption too? And then also, what testing protocol would be for the induct units? I'll take that last part first. As I've mentioned, we have a framework in mind for what that testing protocol will look like, but I'm not going to address any specifics at this time, as we want to make sure that we have a test method that we're happy with before we release any information about it. And as far as the first question, ozone lamps with PCO technology, Kai or Pat?
This is an area that we're still exploring, so we'll be providing more information at a later date. Thank you.
Okay, this next question is from Philip Steckling. Some induct ozone products have variable ozone output to be adjusted for the amount of airflow through the HVAC system and the organic load in that airflow. Would the testing take into account this variability, or the product be based solely on the max ozone output. You know, and again, I think that's directed to me. Yeah, it's going to be based on the maximum ozone output of the device, and you know, as far as again specifics, that will be determined over the next well, over the course of this year. But yeah, it's the maximum ozone that worst case scenario that the device can produce. Okay, this next question is from Ray Fleischauer. UL 867 testing method is considerably different than the CSA test. Basically, UL reads right at the face of the cleaner, where CSA records more of the discharge room area. Are you saying CARB is going to use more the UL method, both the 0.05 ppm, but read in different areas and obtain different results? It's a very good question. And the CSA method, my understanding is it does actually read, I think it's 1.97 inches from the face of the device. It's almost exactly the same as UL. But again, this is for the induct device. We're not talking about portables. We're talking about this is for the induct. And so the portable air cleaners, that of course won't change. But if you have any additional questions, please reach out to me, and I can go into more detail with you with that. But yes, both will use the 0.05 ppm. And at this time, no other questions. Do we have any questions in the room? Oh, hold on.
Thank you. This is Kevin Messner with AHAM. Sorry, I'm a little late, so hopefully I'm not going to repeat a question that's already been asked. Let's see, I had one question on the documentation of model families. If you, to try to help streamline the certification process to deal with model families, sometimes there's, I guess, possibility you have to certify one, even though it's another model family, and then recertify it again. Or whether if there was just not clarity on whether that was the case or whether and model families are okay. That might be one way to streamline the certification process.
We appreciate that suggestion. Right now, manufacturers are able to certify units as a model group. And
Okay.
so we do think that there might need to be some clarification about how to do that to cut down on the number of applications being supplied by the manufacturers. So we do want to streamline that process because we understand what you're saying.
Okay, great. That'd be good. Other question I had was on the, I'm looking at it right, are you proposing a new label that would go on the packaging?
Not a new label per se, but we've had contact with manufacturers, especially of this very small devices, like some of the dual-purpose devices, the personal air cleaning devices, and that our required label just doesn't really fit on the packaging, or they want to, modify it in some way. And so we're looking at being a bit more flexible with that, but saying that the label would have to be approved by CARB prior to manufacture or prior to sale in California, but we are intending to be more flexible in that, particularly the size. And we do need to update the wording on the label as well to make it more accurate at this time.
Okay, all right, that's helpful. The other question I had is, and I'm not necessarily sure how this would, but it's just curious on your thoughts. I mean, a lot of the focus you have is on the units that emit ozone. I'm wondering, and kind of had some just brainstorming discussions, I guess, on what if the unit actually removes ozone and it's a positive outcome of the air cleaner in some instances? Is that anything that you guys have just thought about, or is Does it implicate anywhere what your regs are?
Actually, this isn't an area that we've explored at this time, but it is something that we could consider. Maybe we could have conversations later on that.
Okay.
Thank
yeah,
you.
Yeah, just curious. I don't know whether necessarily we have a position one way or the other, but just kind of curious of how that all plays out.
One thing I want to note when we're exploring ways to streamline and simplify the certification process is we really need to maintain the utility of our online list, because over this decade, that's been a major outcome of this regulation, is that consumers use our list. We know this. We get contacts practically daily from consumers around the U.S. who have questions about the devices that are listed online. So we really want to maintain that maximum utility for consumers. And so we want to capture as much of the market as possible. But at the same time, we don't want to burden manufacturers unnecessarily or our own staff. So we're trying to look at the ways to implement these amendments in the most efficient and yet effective way. So thank you.
Yeah, interesting you said that. I remember it was a few years ago, and it may be the same way, but when we look at our AHAM's website, the most visited website is on KDAR for the CADR and air cleaners and the consumers. It is a very heavily trafficked web page, and so consumers are looking at this information on them, which is good. And again, CARB has their information too. Maybe there's ways to streamline what AHAM's doing, what CARB's doing. So you guys are dealing with California, but maybe our website might reach others that are beyond the state as well, and to help streamline so that we don't necessarily are. Maybe there's some things that we're doing that are duplicative that we can do it in one way too. So we're happy to talk about that as well. I think that's all I had. Let me check to see if anyone has pinged me with something. Yes. The test is conducted from a distance from the source device, and if the device is shown. Let's see, I'm not sure actually if I understand. Oh, if there's no fan involved, then how is the device determined?
So, and I'll answer that. You're referring specifically to the induct devices, correct? Yeah. Well, the device.
No, not the induct.
No.
We don't represent the induct. We
Okay.
represent just a standalone.
Well, the testing for portable air cleaners will remain unchanged. That will continue under the Section 40 test. And yeah, if there is no fan, they're actually still tested 2 inches from the face under a no airflow condition, and it's just diffusion that you're looking at, which
Okay.
can result in a fairly high reading.
Yeah.
It just depends on the device.
Yeah, if there's a lamp or something there.
Exactly. Yeah, and that may be some of them just have just organic airflow through the device just from air current set up by a lamp or something else.
Right. Okay, but that remains unchanged.
That
right now,
remains
do you think?
unchanged.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay, so we have a comment now. I'm sorry, from Charles Waddell, and thank you for the comment, Charles. This is he says, based on the testing I've conducted, the preliminary results from RP 1457, that's ASHRAE's research project on byproducts from PCO. I would imagine that 254 nanometer UV lamps combined with any catalyst product, such as titanium dioxide, should be tested and confirm ozone output. So again, thank you for the comment. Okay, this next question is from Philip Steckling. Regarding the airflow used for induct ozone generators, would the airflow be based on the specification of the product, or would the testing standard specify the airflow used in the test? And under the working understanding, I think that what we're thinking about right now is that it would be a combination of both. Actually, there would be a minimum airflow under which the device would be tested, And then also the device would be tested within the range of the airflow specified by the manufacturer. Those details will be worked out, but that is currently what the testing method used by CSA specifies. Okay, this is from Manny Toledo. Greetings and thank you for the workshop. Many induct products in the marketplace that contain UV lamps do not produce ozone. Do produce ozone, whether that is disclosed by the manufacturer or not. A question about this. One, for manufacturers that claim that their induct product produces singlet oxygen, hydrogen peroxide, or anything else, what is the process or mechanism for a consumer to report to the California Air Resources Board? Kai or Pat, do you want to take that first?
Yes. For cases like this, we do have a email, is it aircleaners@arb.ca.gov, and if you have any information, yeah, please forward it to that address.
Okay. Yeah, sure, Kai.
We have active enforcement of the regulation, and we do rely on, to a large degree, on kind of whistleblower emails. So do feel free to notify us of any non-compliant air cleaners that you're aware of being sold in California. Thank you.
Okay, question number 2. UV lamps that emit light at wavelengths other than 254 nanometer also may not produce ozone. Would you consider expanding the exemption to testing for UV devices that emit UV light at wavelengths other than 254 nanometers as well? For example, there are numerous devices that emit UV light greater than 200 nanometers that do not produce ozone. And if you like, I think I can take that. You know, it's not necessarily a bright line in terms of ozone emissions. Obviously, 185 is the spectral peak where you get most of the ozone produced. But those lamps, the spectral characteristics aren't necessarily just purely at a single wavelength if you have a broader spectrum lamp, of course. So I don't believe that we're considering anything other than just 254 nanometer at that point. We would really have to know a lot more about other lamps and whether or not we'd be willing to go any lower than that. I don't know, Kai or Pat, do you want to add to that?
We might want to see maybe possibly higher than that, but we're still looking at 254 right now.
Okay. This question comes from Taro Ishikawa. I would be happy to discuss and explain the issue directly. Oh, excuse me. Taro, in your earlier email, okay, I just realized you're linking this to an earlier email. I did not see any question from you, so this second email that you're saying you would be happy to discuss and explain the issue directly, I'm not sure what that issue is. So in that case, if you would, please reach out to us directly and we can discuss it with you via a personal email. That might be a little bit easier at this point. Okay, any other questions from the room? Okay, Pat, that's all I have here.
This is Linda Smith. At this point, I think since there aren't any further questions right now from the internet, we're going to take a 15-minute break and resume at that point. If there are more questions, we'll continue with workshops. So meet us in about 15 minutes.
everyone. We're back for a few more questions. Sorry, Linda. We have an email comment from Craig Allred. Hi, Craig. He expressed some difficulty in finding the slides for today's workshop. I wanted to let you know that the link to our amendments webpage is in the notice that was sent out, the public notice, and you can go there, and on the webpage it says download. Unfortunately, there's not a title that says that that's the PowerPoint, but if you click on the download, that is the PowerPoint. If you still have problems, please email me and I'll send you the slides directly. And again, my email address is julia.gress@arb.ca.gov. Thank you.
And I guess we have 2 more comments, I guess technical comments, which Jeffrey's going to
Yeah,
answer.
thanks, Pat. This question is from Dean Tompkins. Hi, Dean. Thank you for the comment or the question. Can you elaborate to other ROS, that's reactive oxygen species, and the possibility of their regulation based on measurement? Dean, right now the regulation is just focused on ozone. If ozone is a byproduct of, say, a hydroxyl generator or other ROS generating device, then it certainly would be subject to testing and based on those limits. But we don't have any measurement for other ROS at this point. Another question comes from Philip Steckling. And the question is, natural UV from the sun has been shown to produce levels of ozone in the air around 0.03 ppm. Would the test air be stripped of any natural occurring ozone prior to the passing of the unit being tested? And to answer that, yes, it's because the testing is done indoors, and the makeup air that goes to the device is extensively filtered before it gets to the device, and so the background air has essentially 0 ozone. If there is any background at all, it's subtracted from the resulting test value from the device.
Jeff, are there any other comments at this time?
And so we do have a few more questions that have just come in. Would you like me to just read those from here?
Yes.
Okay. This question comes from Tim Bender. If you're listing air cleaners on your site as meeting CARB ozone requirements, and this is then telling the consumer that what you are saying is that the device is viable for addressing airborne contaminants. I guess the question are we saying that it's viable for addressing airborne contaminants? Kai, Pat?
I can take that. No, we're only testing to make sure it doesn't produce ozone. We're not testing the efficiency of these devices, so we can't make any claims on how good they work.
Okay, next part of this is, it is proven that there are ion generators that claim certain effects on improving air quality that can pass the ozone requirements that produce little or weak ions that are not effective and do nothing for improving air quality. Should you be requiring the testing facilities to also test for actual efficiencies in addressing contaminants? It's up to you. You guys can take that, or I can
I
take
guess
it.
that's similar to the previous question. Yeah, we're not testing the efficiencies. All we are is testing for possible ozone emissions.
And this is just a comment from Dean Tompkins. He's just requesting that we make available a written transcript of the questions and answers portion of the presentation, if not the entire webcast today. And if I'm not mistaken, it's recorded. Is that right, Kai?
Yeah, yes, the webcast is recorded. We do not have transcripts, though, but the video will be posted, I think, fairly soon. If you have any questions about when it's posted, you could, I guess, contact us, and we'll let you know once we know when it goes up.
Okay, and then there's one more question. This is from Taro Ishikawa. This is regards to the email that he sent earlier that was empty, and he's resent the email. So greetings from Japan again, and thank you for your workshop today. I'm a regulatory consultant and have been involved with the CARB applications for an ion generator manufacturer in the automotive industry. We are facing difficulties in terms of the factory inspection and the CDR. So it says ion generators which generate hydroxyl radicals from ambient air are incorporated in car's air conditioning system. It works only when switched on. It would not be realistic for the device manufacturer, sorry, this is a little broken, has a responsibility for the CARB ozone application because the device manufacturer doesn't have the car's specific design. The device, the device manufacturer is not involved with the design of the car air conditioning system. The device manufacturer is struggling to collect the relevant parts from the car manufacturer. Kai, I think this goes to something we're really working on, and maybe you might want to address this.
Hello, yes, and yes, this is something we would like to discuss with you more. We are aware that there are more induct models coming on the market for use in cars. Preferentially, we would like those devices to be tested, at the device level and not have to undergo the induct testing. And so, but we are able to accommodate, the differences as you mentioned there. So this is something that we are considering, and we look forward to more fruitful discussions with you about that.
Okay, and that's it. There are no other questions.
All right, thank you very much, Jeff, and thank you for all the participation, all the interesting questions, your comments. If you have anything in addition, please send them at the web address that we provided or telephone calls, whatever. We're very interested to hear what your suggestions are. And with that, I'd like Pat to close out the meeting.
Okay, I'd like to thank everyone who came to visit us both at the headquarters and also online. And just a reminder, comments, we would like to receive comments before March 30th, and we do have another workshop on June 3rd, and announcements will go out before both of those. And I guess that's the end of our workshop today. Again, thank you for joining us.